So the Detroit Lions lose in heartbreaking fashion. They had it. They definitely choked that one. Hell of a year. I'm sure most Lions fans are pretty happy with the run, the result, but this one definitely stings because they were so close to go into the Super Bowl, and I don't know how many opportunities like this are going to come in the future. They're pretty rare for every fan base, to be honest. A lot of people can look at Josh Reynolds and those two big drops, especially the one on fourth down, but really, I think we gotta take a look at Dan Campbell. Everyone loves Dan Campbell. I love Dan Campbell, MCDC. I mean, come on. Such a great guy. And he is a great coach. No doubt about it. He is a great coach, especially for the city of Detroit. 100%. His aggressiveness, his gambling on fourth down. Maybe it caught up with him today. Maybe it didn't. It really depends on how you look at it. I think the first fourth down at the start of the third quarter was really interesting. Yes, it was fourth and short. Yes, I understand his thinking in that situation because if they would have scored, that may have been the nail in the coffin. But at the same time, you gotta think like momentum is such a huge thing in football and in life that you get a stop on fourth down, that's a huge momentum shift, especially when you're playing on the road in a playoff game, might have you. So to go for it on fourth down, it really depends on who you ask, but I know hindsight is 2020, but you take the points there and at the end of the game, you're set up to win the game essentially. Now, the other fourth down where they were down by 3, I understand that one more because if you were to tie it up with 3 there, then San Fran, they get the ball back and all they need is 3 to win the game. They could drain the clock, they could take their sweet time, and Detroit would never see the ball again. But it's interesting because a lot of people say they got here because of Dan Campbell's ability to be gutsy and be ballsy. And that's why they're here. But at the same time, there always is a roof. There always is a ceiling. And maybe we've hit it with his play calling and his gambling. I mean, maybe in these big games, you need to be more critical with your thinking, and maybe you need to be a bit more conservative during those bigger games. It's hard to tell, but I just think that's something to kind of pay attention to, especially for next year, because I don't know, a loss like this is tough to come back from. Obviously, the Super Bowl hangover is a very real thing. And though the Lions did not make the Super Bowl, this was a pretty heartbreaking loss. And sometimes heartbreaking losses can divide a team and it could crush it morally, psychologically. So we will see. But I'm curious to see if he changes his gambling at all. I'm sure he won't. He'll still be Dan Campbell, MCDC, going for it on fourth down. And that's great, but I just think in these big moments, in these big games, when you're trying to win a bowl, I just think sometimes you gotta take the extra points. So I'd like to see him grow from this. I'd like to see him just learn from this a little bit and still at the same time be himself. I know easier said than done, but I'm rooting for him and the Lions, of course, like most of the world. Hopefully they run it back and have a good year, but that's the other thing I want to talk about is will the Lions be back in the 2024-2025 season? Will they make it back to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, hopefully? I think that's really tough for a variety of reasons. One, the hangover, which I mentioned earlier. Two, you're losing Ben Johnson, and we saw firsthand how critical OCs are in the NFL with the Eagles this past year. So hopefully they find a good guy to replace him with. I don't know who that would be, but Ben Johnson's going to Washington, so they need a good OC to step in, because a good OC is very, very valuable. Number 3, I would say the emergence of the Packers. I mean, the NFC North was wide open this year. It was really the Lions' year from the get-go. I mean, the Bears were the Bears. The Vikings lost Kirk Cousins. Jordan Love's first year, so a lot of growing pains. For next year, I don't know. The Vikings are going to be back full force. The Bears should be better with Caleb Williams. Jordan Love might be a serious threat in the NFC, so it's going to be a dogfight to be the champs of the North next year. But at the other side of that coin, the Lions have a lot of cap space. So with that cap space, they should add another receiver and shore up that secondary because it needs help. They need a safety. They need a corner. They just need more of a presence in that backfield. And I know C.J. Gardner-Johnson was kind of out this year, so we couldn't really see his full impact on the team entirely, but they need help, and they have cap space, so they'll get that help. There are talks of Jared Goff getting an extension this offseason, so we'll see how that plays out. I hope they don't completely screw themselves. I'm sure they won't, but I just want this team to get better and make it to the Super Bowl, because seeing history is fun and it's cool. Everyone loves it, and everyone would love to see the Lions go to their first Super Bowl. That'd be dope, but lots of questions for this offseason and the growth of Dan Campbell and this entire Lions team. We will see what happens. So, what do you think? Does MCDC have a gambling problem? Will he learn from this? I'm sure he'll still go for it, be ballsy, and that's fine, but like I said, those big games, like sometimes you just gotta take those points. What do you think's gonna happen? What will the Lions add in the offseason? What do you think they need to add? Let me know. That's all I got. Peace.
Talent. This receiver can make the catches when you throw it his way, and I think his talent, the way offenses are designed, and the rules of the NFL, it makes guys like him almost unstoppable.
Grimes nearly comes away with the pick on that throw.
Gets tight down here in the red zone, so if you're a defender, read the quarterback. If you make a quick break on the football, hey, you'll get in a position like this, and you can knock it down.